a gun in the face.
Then all of a sudden, they all kind of lined up. They pointed their guns at me. And this is the point where I thought, I'm going to die today.
Started 2 years of horror for an American in Venezuela.
They said, you need to give us your phone and get ready because you're coming with us.
I'm Becky Bruce, and I spent a year researching and piecing together Josh and Tammy Holt's story about their ordeal in a notorious prison.
That's when everything started to turn bad. We had another pound on the door. Boom, boom, boom. And there was the police once again.
You can binge all of the episodes of Hope in Darkness on kslpodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, welcome to Project Recovery, a podcast about addiction, but more importantly, it's about recovery. And it's brought to you by our good friends over at useonlyasdirected.org. They've got a 3-part solution: speak out, opt out, and of course, throw out. And we want to thank them very much. We got them coming up on the show in a couple of weeks, and they've got some cool things going on out there to help out families and loved ones who are suffering through this epidemic of, opioids. I mean, it seems like epidemic, pandemic. I mean, it's everywhere we turn.
All the emics.
Yeah. You could probably dissect that word for me. What is demic?
Demic is just a widespread something.
And so pan means world and ep means
I don't know.
Local?
I could be wrong. Pan means worldwide.
Yeah.
And epidemic just means more local. I don't know.
How many years did you go to school?
Not enough, apparently.
I thought you'd be able to just wow me with your intellect.
Right. That I went to public school, so Latin isn't something that I know.
Oh, Morgan High didn't have a good...
High. No, we had the deer hunt off. Let's put it that way. I'm lucky I can read English at all, buddy.
We had the deer hunt off. Hey, so last week we issued a challenge. We released a bonus episode of a guided meditation by our own Dr. Matt, and it's doing wonderful. And I want people to kind of reach back out to us and see if they've done it and how it's working for them. I actually sat down and had my girlfriend listen to one.
Okay.
And, and she's kind of high strung, and for her to sit down and do 10 minutes, the dog was barking, her daughter was working on the computer, and she was like, I just can't focus. And I told her what you told me. It's like, your mind will drift, but just bring it back to center.
Right.
And afterwards I said, well, how do you feel? And she goes, well, I felt my shoulders at ease and I felt my body slowing down. And those are just some of the benefits initially from meditation.
For most people, their experience is just like Leslie's, where how often during the day do you sit down and just calm and focus and center? Never, right? We're always on the go. What's the next thing? And so it takes practice. That's why I wish I'm still looking for really awesome stuff in life that just happens for free. Mm-hmm. But all the good stuff seems to take work and practice. But after just a few days, and maybe some of our listeners, because we've had a lot of people downloading that episode, maybe some of our listeners can share that. Did Leslie do more than the one time, or? I
got my kid, so I haven't seen her in a couple of days.
Okay.
So, okay. And maybe just me not being there is helping her meditation.
It's sort of like going to the gym.
Yeah.
Meditation is it's like taking your brain to the gym. I tell people that all the time, because if you just go once, you're like, this is horrible. Why am I doing this? This is, this is hard work. I don't feel like I'm getting much out of it. If you go for a week, you start to go, oh yeah, this feels good. I like exercising, being active. And the same thing with your brain and your mind and focusing. The first day or two can be kind of frustrating because you think, I shouldn't have to listen to the dog bark or whatever it may be. If you forget to turn your phone off, it buzzes and that annoys you or whatever. But if you do it for 3 or 4 days, maybe a week straight, most people, in fact, I don't know that I've ever truly had somebody come back to me and say it wasn't helpful and beneficial.
So give it a shot. Of course, you can download that wherever you get podcasts. Now, Dr. Matt, I mowed the lawn this morning, and while mowing the lawn, I kind of had a deep thought. And to me, it seemed deep. To you, it might just seem silly.
I don't know. Lawn mowing deep thoughts, that's a good thing.
But I was thinking about this, and I know people out there who are continually just waiting for the other shoe to drop. And
the next big crisis or something?
And I think I'm waiting for the other shoe to lift off.
Yeah, that's...
You know what I mean? And that's how I look at life.
You're an optimist. We've talked about
I don't want this other foot to drop, and I'm hoping it's never going to. But I want the other one so we can just soar and fly.
Yeah.
You know, and so if I can just reframe the way I look at this week, that's what I want to do. I want to take the other foot off the ground and just fly.
Well, that's some good cognitive psychology, reframing how we look at things in an optimistic way.
And then I had another one when I was going down to get our guest today, and we're going to talk to Charla here in just a second. But I got in the elevator, and I'm like, and I'm wondering where you are. I'm wondering where Josh is. And I get in there, and the door shuts. And I'm in there for like 30 seconds, and I go, oh, I didn't hit the button. You know, and so sometimes you're like that in life. You're in the elevator and you just haven't hit the button,
right?
And you thought you did. You thought you've done the work, and you thought you're ready to go, but you just haven't hit the button.
You haven't gone all the way.
So I say today, this week, hit the button in life. You know,
I like that.
And just let's get some movement going.
Take some action, positive action. Thoughts, feelings, behaviors. If you're thinking in an optimistic way, waiting for the other shoe to lift off, as you said, it's going to bolster your emotions, how you feel, and that's going to result in more productive behaviors, pushing the button. So well done.
So
you brought it all together. I'm impressed.
I'm going to write this crap down.
You should. Make a book, write it, sell it.
Well, we're doing a podcast, so
well, that's close.
I'm pushing the button.
Okay.
Hey, our guest today is Charla Bocchicchio. Did I get that right?
Nailed it.
Yeah, and we've been practicing that off air for about 5 minutes.
Yep.
And you said you had a friend named what?
Chochicchio.
Are you sure?
I'm not really. I think so. Obviously, we're not that close, but it's something. It's pretty close.
So Charla is another one of our guests who came to us via our Instagram or our Facebook, and this is the story of her and her daughter. Now, we've had a lot of people on the podcast to talk about their addictions and what they're doing, and unfortunately, there's people out there that can no longer tell their story. And so it's left to loved ones and family members to tell their story and how they're going through the process. And that's kind of how we start this out, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I felt like this pull and purpose that telling my daughter's story was really important moving forward.
So let's talk about your daughter a little bit, and then we'll go into your story.
Okay. She... Well, I'll start with the end, and then I'll back up.
I love it.
My daughter, Cassidy Cochran, was her last name. She died of a fentanyl overdose on November 11th of 2016.
Wow.
She tried heroin for the first time when she was 15. And, you know, in that developing young brain, it almost felt like she didn't stand a chance. You know, at the time, what we were battling as far as finding appropriate treatment and everything, it just felt like we were way in over our heads. So that was a struggle. But I guess backing up even further, because I think her story began much younger as far as her story of mental illness and addiction. She, from a very young age, suffered from anxiety. And it's funny because I think we use that term anxiety so ubiquitously that it doesn't even like mean what it really is anymore. I mean, people say, oh, I've got anxiety, but some of them don't really suffer from anxiety. When I'm talking about anxiety in a clinical sense, I'm talking about, you know, that
debilitating.
Yes, that feeling that you can't shut off whatever it is, that motor that's running, and the thoughts, and the fear. Worry, you know, always jumping to the worst case scenario. And she was like that from a very young age. You know, she was like the life of the party and beautiful and smart and funny and charismatic, even as a, you know, infant or toddler. So it wasn't like she never had light in her life, but she was constantly battling this inner anxiety. We sought treatment for her at a very young age because we saw these behaviors in her that were just a little bit concerning. Some OCD-like behaviors, which is it's an anxiety disorder. From, you know, the age of 4, you know, we would find these notebooks by her bed she had a digital clock in her room, and she would write down every time as it changed. 9:00, 9:01, 9:02, 9:03, 9:03 until she fell asleep. And so then there were other things that were going on. And so we got her a play therapist because at that time she was young. We didn't know where to go. I don't know how much that really helped. It was fine. She ended up starting school, and then separation anxiety reared its ugly head in, kindergarten, just tearing her away from me every time I drop her off in school. We couldn't even do the carpool lane because I had to walk her in, and the teacher had to, physically unhand her. So we were dealing with this all of her young life. About the time she got into middle school, of course, social pressures kind of weighed a little heavier at that time, and she became pretty depressed. Her friends reached out to me one day before carpool and said, I think you need to talk to Cassidy. Something important is happening, something we're really worried about. But they didn't want to tell me what it was. So I got her in the car and I said, Cassidy, is everything okay? And she kind of broke down and pulled up her sleeves, and there were just cuts all up and down her arms. She'd been hiding it. She'd been cutting herself for months. And it was winter, so she was easily able to cover that from us. And that was one of those warning signs that, kind of the red flag that went, okay, this is...
Let me stop you right there, because this is she lives in your house, you love her, you gave birth to her, and then when you find out that she's cutting, I mean, that had to be a surprise and a shock, and...
It broke my heart. And the reason that it was so hard for me is knowing that what she was doing on the outside was just a little piece of what she was suffering from internally. It broke my heart to know that she was in so much anguish and that she didn't have the tools to express it and figure it out. And she was a smart girl, she was bright as the brightest star, really smart child. So it wasn't like, I think we have this myth sometimes in our mind that, well, it's never, none of these bad things can happen to our kid.
Oh, yeah.
They're too smart. They're too educated.
That
she grew up.
Someone else's, not
right.
mine.
We're in an upper middle class family. Her dad's an attorney. Everything's fine. But no, it wasn't fine.
So when you find out she's cutting, and that is a big red flag, where do you guys go from there?
She was seeing a therapist at that time, every so often. And we called her right away, and we told her what was going on. And she said, bring her in. And after talking to her for about an hour, she said, I think we need to admit her to the psychiatric youth unit at the hospital for a little while, because she's telling me she's, a danger to herself. It was more than just the cutting at that point. She was wanting to kill herself.
Suicidal tendencies, suicidal thoughts.
Yeah. And so... we did. We took her. She was 12 years old. And we took her for her first residential stay, inpatient, at a youth psychiatric ward. And she stayed for, I think, a week, maybe 5 days. And when we got her home, she seemed to be much better. She really did well in that setting. She was given some tools and so much care, that 24/7 care, that she really did well. And so we kept her in an outpatient, intensive outpatient program after that. So she was going 3 days a week after school. And everything seemed like it was okay. She was getting some tools finally to deal with this anxiety and depression. And we kind of thought, well, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the end. And she's, we're moving forward therapeutically. Everything's going to be okay. Well, we didn't know, and we found a lot of this out later. But after that time, kind of maybe in her next couple of years in middle school and the beginning of high school, she had turned to a few substances as some self-medication because she still had that thing that wouldn't shut up inside of her.
Coping.
Yeah. She, she had more freedom at that point because she was getting older. She was a young teenager. And so she was doing sleepovers and with friends more often. And there were, liquor cabinets and medicine cabinets and homes, and they just find whatever they can. And at that time, it's kind of experimentation for a lot of these girls it was. But I think for Cassidy, she was looking for the next thing to make her feel better or to stop feeling so much. And I think she found that those substances really worked for her. It was,
So alcohol, pain
alcohol,
meds.
pills, yeah, things like that. Pot. And so she kind of, sowed her wild oats, as we say. And, we use those terms.
Kids being kids.
Whatever, yeah. Of course, I didn't see that it was as serious as it was at the time. I didn't know the extent that she was using these substances. I thought, well, maybe occasionally she's having a little drink with her girlfriends and everything's fine. They're at home and they're safe. But she met a boy. She always had this penchant for meeting or being in relationships with boys that just were not good for her.
She fancied the bad boys.
She did. And I think it became an addiction for her in a way. She admitted that later. She said, I was addicted to bad relationships. So she found this guy, this boy. She was 15, and she lied to us about how old he was because he looked really young. He had a baby face. She said he was 16. In reality, he was 19. Mm-hmm. We had no idea. And we're not going to check IDs when
he's not getting into a club,
No. But we knew there was something about him we didn't really like. It was like he was not very engaged with us as parents of the girl, and he isolated Cassidy a bit. And so we thought we were kind of overreacting, but both of us, her dad and I, just felt in our guts that there was something not. So about this time, her dad and I were both away for the evening separately. He was working a case down in southern Alabama. He was a lawyer, and I had opening night of a show I had directed. We get a call from the police that a 911 call had been made from our daughter at our home. She had called 911 because her boyfriend had overdosed and was seizing on her bedroom floor. They had injected cocaine, and she was in a panic. She thought he was going to die. He didn't. He recovered. But when we got to the house that night, that's when the police said, "Do you want to press charges?" He is what's the term about
statutory?
No. The minor thing, like he's endangering a minor or whatever that term is. I have a brain fart right now.
We'll go with that.
But anyway, and we went, wait, a minor? He's a minor too. And he said he had his ID, and he said, nope, he's 19. And so we were faced with this idea of what do we do? And we said, we want to press charges. Take him. The paramedics had gotten there. They had revived him. He was fine. So the police took him away. And of course, Cassidy's, crying and
not my boyfriend,
in a panic.
Mom.
And yeah, of course, it's going to be our fault.
How could you do this to me?
Right. So that was, he was okay. He spent a few nights in jail, and the rest of us were just kind of left with this wake-up call and this, we got to clean up this mess, literally and figuratively.
Because you went from kids experimenting with alcohol and that to a 19-year-old almost overdosing on your daughter's bedroom floor of injecting cocaine.
Yes, and she had injected cocaine as well that night. So, big wake-up call. We called her therapist that night. And she said, let me talk to Cassidy. She talked to her for a while, and she said, okay, I don't get the feeling that Cassidy's really got an addiction issue. I think this was maybe a one-time thing. And, Cassidy had done she was basically lying to her therapist.
Well, as addicts, we get very good at lying and playing the truth.
And I think, unfortunately, whether it's a teacher or a therapist or a pediatrician, when other aspects of the child or teenager's life are going well, like you mentioned, highly educated, upper SES, parents that are involved, and a kid who looks well put together and all of that, it's unfortunately kind of easy to be lulled into their deceptive lies. And it often takes something like unfortunately a crisis for people, including parents, to realize, oh my goodness, we have a much bigger, deeper issue going on. So
yeah,
that happens a lot.
So you're listening to Project Recovery, a podcast about addiction, more importantly, about recovery. We're listening to Charla's story, and we'll be right back in just a few seconds.
Two years ago, Americans watched in horror as a crisis unfolded at the Kabul airport.
She was tear-gassed and beaten.
Images of thousands desperate to escape Taliban oppression filled our news feeds. More than 80,000 Afghans made it to America. But the story didn't end there.
It was very cold. There was no power, no heat.
Who would help our newest neighbors? I'm Andrea Smartin. In Stranger Becomes Neighbor, you'll hear the stories of some remarkable refugees who left their homes and their dreams behind, only to start over from zero.
Their only possession was 3 blankets.
And you'll meet Americans who stepped up to help them.
You want me to come when you deliver your baby.
What can one person do in the face of an international disaster decades in the making? That's Stranger Becomes Neighbor. Find us at kslpodcast.com. Follow us on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else you listen.
So, Charla, opening night, you're directing a play. Your husband's a lawyer. He's off in Alabama. You get the phone call that your daughter and her boyfriend have been shooting up cocaine. And you said this was a bunch of red flags. Where does the story go from here?
So we obviously continued therapeutic treatment, but we did not have her go to a 28-day program because we were taking the advice of her therapist, which said, let's get her in an intensive outpatient program again. You guys are going to have to be really vigilant about keeping an eye on her and, like restrictions and all of that. So we were like, okay, we can do this. And we found out, as a side note, the reason she was injecting cocaine is because she and her boyfriend were snorting cocaine, but she didn't like the way it made her nose feel. She was having nosebleeds and it bothered her nose. So she thought, brilliantly, let's inject it, right? So having introduced that needle already, once restrictions started to lessen a little bit on our end because she was doing well and she was away from this boyfriend, she found him again, unbeknownst to us, got back involved with him. And her behavior at that time was off the charts, unpredictable and chaotic. She was angry. She was explosive. She was failing school, basically. And one night, she was, I think we got into an argument about homework or something like that. It was something silly. And she threatened to kill herself. She went down to the kitchen and she got a butcher knife and she held it to her throat. And when we tried to get it away from her, she turned it on us. And she was out of her mind. I'd never seen her like that. And we were scared. So her dad wrestled the knife out of her hand and she was in a pile on the floor, just, sobbing. And we said, Cassidy, you need help. We've got to do something. So we took her to the hospital to see if they would, do a 5150?
5150.
And they did, of course, and kept her. And we were trying to figure out, oh my God, what are we going to do? And we get a call from the social worker the next morning at the hospital. And she said, I can't tell you exactly what's going on because Cassidy was over 14. And in Alabama, the HIPAA laws said that basically she had privacy. She, doctors didn't have to share with us. She said, I can't tell you exactly what's going on, but let me put it this way. If Cassidy were my daughter and I knew what I knew about her, I would put her in a long-term treatment program and not let her out for a long time. And we were like, well, what's going on? So the social worker finally got Cassidy to tell us the truth. And that was when Cassidy got on the phone and said, through a panic attack while she was telling us, she had been shooting up heroin with her boyfriend. And she couldn't stop. And she needed it. And she had a problem. And she wanted help. And so we were left with this okay, what do we do now? Our 15-year-old daughter is telling us that she has a heroin problem. So while she was in that psychiatric unit, we thought, okay, well, let's take this in steps. We knew we needed to get her into a drug treatment center. And there was a great adolescent program up in Huntsville, Alabama. And so we transferred her immediately from the hospital there. We didn't let her come home first. We took her straight to this drug treatment center. So we had 28 days there with insurance, right? We knew we had 28 days to figure out what we were going to do. But we knew, because of all of her underlying conditions, and her therapist at that time was talking about a possible bipolar diagnosis. They didn't know exactly because she was an adolescent, of course. And that can look a lot like bipolar disorder or borderline personality disorder.
Especially with the drug abuse.
Right.
You have to help a person be clean for a longer period of time before you can really... to kind of unpack that. Yeah.
So we knew that it wasn't, that 28 days was not going to be enough. We just knew it. And so we started to look for longer-term residential treatment centers for adolescent girls. And we found a really great program in southern Utah, of all places. This is when we were living in Birmingham, Alabama. We found a program in southern Utah near St. George in Hurricane called Sunrise. And we called and told our story, and they said, she sounds like a really good candidate. Let's do it. And then we were like, oh, insurance doesn't pay for this. We had to take out a personal loan. We had to, all of this was just a mess. But we did it.
Because that's what you do.
We did what we had to do. And so we got her on a plane from Alabama. We had to give her Klonopin that was prescribed by her doctor just to get her on the airplane because she didn't want it. She was fighting us every step of the way. She said, "No, I'm fixed.
28 days, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good. I'll go to meetings. I'll be good. I promise."
We've heard that story many a time,
and we just knew it.
And many times, and good for you as parents to not give into that because there's your child and they're begging you to stay home and you're sending them away. And what a tough thing that must be. But good for you to follow your intuition and know that she needed more treatment.
It was one of the hardest things we had to do.
So you get her on the plane, you fly to southern Utah.
We get her there. She sees the center for the first time, and she's like, "Oh, this looks all fine and well and dandy, and maybe this will be okay." And then we get done with the little tour, and the woman who's talking to us says, "Okay, it's time for your parents to go. Oh, and you're going to have to take all your piercings out." She had tongue piercing, nose, ears a few times, and she threw a hissy fit. To her, that was the linchpin. It was like, well, I was going to stay if I could do it on my terms.
Yeah.
But she went.
But knowing what I
crazy.
know about addicts is that she was going to find something.
It was an excuse.
She was going to find something to throw a fit over.
For sure.
And I think also for an adolescent who's struggling with addiction and other mental health issues, sometimes they feel like they need to hold on to
that's their identity.
Something that's identity driven and it's sort of symbolic of who they are. But on the therapeutic end, it's important for them to let go of all those things. Even something that may seem as trivial as a piercing, letting go of that is letting go of all those things associated with your past addictive behaviors. And so, but that's actually pretty common in residential and inpatient settings where an adolescent or even an adult, but typically an adolescent will kind of lose it over having to give up something like a piercing.
Yeah, for sure.
So she throws the fit.
She runs out to the car. It's 110 degrees. This is like August in southern Utah.
Yeah.
And she shuts herself in the car, and her dad and I are in the lobby of this place looking at the therapist going, "What do we do?" And she goes, "It's fine. She'll come out. It's like 110 degrees out there. She's not going to stay out there forever." And so we just trusted that it was going to be okay. And eventually they got her to come back in, and it was fine. And we were able to leave her there. And she stayed her whole junior year, 8 months at Sunrise. And she did beautifully. That was the first time we had hope. You know, we were going out for family weekends quite often, and we'd have all of these, she'd be able to have some home visits as a transition, you know, with very limited access to friends and things like that. And it was like I had my daughter back. She was this version of herself that was like, oh, wow.
The one you knew she could be.
Yeah. And so she graduated the program and we got her home and she had all these tools in place and she was really doing well. And a few months later, she relapsed. She found that old boyfriend again. And she relapsed and we thought, okay, this is a bump. We know that this happens with recovery.
Relapses are common.
Absolutely. We can handle this. We've got the tools. And from then on, it was just the roller coaster, the constant in and out, being, staying away from substances for a while and then relapsing and going right back into the quicksand. About that time, her dad and I divorced. She and I moved out to LA together. She promised herself she wouldn't do heroin anymore.
It's a new start.
Yep. A few months later, she was doing meth with some people she met. And then she was it was just, the rabbit hole. She just fell deeper. Every time she relapsed, it was something a little different.
Do you think she fell or she searched?
Well, she was searching for a way to feel better, for sure. But behavior-wise, it looked like she was just falling into a rabbit hole of the abyss.
Was she still talking about that intense anxiety still being an issue for her?
Yeah. And she was being treated with a multitude of psychiatric drugs at that time, things that we thought were working. She was 18 by then, so her psychiatrist had given her a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder based on all of her issues. And again, I'm not sure if that was clouded with the drug use or not.
It's hard to say.
But anyway, so she was on, she had a Xanax prescription. She was on a few mood stabilizers and things like that. So she had tools, but it was like she just craved this other, more powerful substance that was going to take everything away.
And she's 18 now.
Yeah. So I didn't have as much control as I did before. So it really got bad at that time. And then we got her back to Birmingham with her dad. That's about the time I moved back to Utah. And she just it was one bad relationship after another and just chaos constantly. I had to really create some boundaries for myself with her at that point. I told her she wasn't welcome in my house when she was using and that I couldn't be around it. I couldn't. I loved her and I wanted to have a relationship with her, but I couldn't have a real relationship with her when the substances were in the way. It was impossible. And that was hard. And so it just kept going. And toward the end, she ended up in jail. She got out and she arranged to meet up with someone she met, a cellmate. Someone had arranged for some friends to pick her up. And she ended up that night like in a Breaking Bad situation. Like she was in some kind of heroin den or something. And she said there was somebody duct taped to a post and she was terrified. She managed to get a phone from somebody and call her dad. And he picked her up. And when he was driving her back into Birmingham, he said, "You can't come back to the house with me. You're not welcome there." And he drove her to a women's homeless shelter. And when he pulled up, he said, "If you can't figure this out and really turn your life around, you will be dead within a year." And she was. It was less than a year after that she was with a new boyfriend. She seemed to be doing okay. I don't think she had been using for a few months. And he got paid one day. And they got this idea that they would shoot up together. So he went and found what he thought was heroin. He came back to the house. She was living with him at that time, this guy. And they both shot up. His story is that, of course, they kind of, went out and he came to and saw that she was still not revived or, she was still kind of out of it. And he fell and into the tub. He broke his collarbone, but he fell And when he woke up after that happened, she was in a different spot next to the tub on her hands and knees with her head down, and she was dead already. No. So when he came to, she was gone. And of course he called the, 911 and everything. And I had been turning my phone to silent at night for the last few months before that, because it was one of my steps of saying, okay, I'm not going to get sucked into this drama, because at that point she could have called at any time of night and had some crisis,
you have
some
to have
perceived
boundaries.
crisis.
Yeah.
So I had started turning my phone off, and that morning I woke up and I looked over, grabbed my phone on the nightstand, just missed call after missed call after missed call from my ex-husband. And my stomach just dropped. I'm like, okay, this is not normal. I don't know what's happening. And I called him immediately, and he said, she's gone. Cassidy died last night. And it was like that call that I had feared my whole life with her, her whole adolescent life. It was the call I was like ready for, in a way. I had told myself it could happen, but to hear the words on the other end of the phone was just like, take your breath away. And I just collapsed on the floor, and I couldn't stop saying no. But I knew that it was done. There was nothing I could do about it.
But it's not done.
No. And
because you got Cassidy's story still to tell, and you're here telling it today. You're listening to Project Recovery. We're listening to Charla's heart-wrenching story about her and her daughter. And make sure you tune into episode 2 to see what she's doing now and how she's dealing with the grief. You're listening to Project Recovery, a KSL podcast.
The contents of this program are for informational purposes only. The program is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed therapist, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this program. KSL does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the program. Reliance on any information provided on the program is solely at your own risk.